We are ready to go. All right. One more reminder, if you're looking at this is the QR code for my Substack. We do all kinds of extra tape analysis, but all kinds of stuff beyond if you ever watch the live chat and we get into like all the combat sports topics plus beyond, this is for you. There's a link in the description box below. You can scan this if you want more. But all right, enough of that. Let's talk about what just happened. UFC 314 is in the books. Let's read it. Let's get to it. Let's do the whole bit here right now. All right. UFC 314 took place at the Casilla Center in Miami, Florida. We don't have the gate yet or the bonus winners yet, but as they come up, I'll try to get to it. Let's talk about it. In your main event, Alexander Volkanovski defeats Diego Lopes. Your scores 48-47 and then 249-46s. I've got the scorecards here. I don't know if they've been updated yet. Let's go to the bottom, take a look at them if we've got them. They don't have it up yet. We're still waiting on that. They've got the co-main, but they don't have the main event. So we'll see what rounds they gave him. Let's talk big picture. We start with the winner, Alexander Volkanovski. This was okay. So what were we expecting heading into this fight? What was the predominant analysis that many people had? It I think proved to be quite true in the end. It was okay, if you just watch the tape on these two guys, one is clearly better than the other. Volkanovski has fought better competition. He has defeated much better competition. He has achieved much better heights. He has a much better sense of timing, rhythm, manipulation. We always talk about how he likes to scramble people's brains, not just with the punches, but by setting patterns and then disrupting, setting patterns and then disrupting. And relative to what Diego Lopes has shown us on tape, he just looks much better. He looks mechanically smoother. Again, higher level strategy, higher level implementation, all the way around. But in the case of Diego Lopes, a guy who has surged up the contendership queue, who has offense everywhere, who does have dynamite punching power, somebody to take seriously, right? And had earned this position, I think. How is the fight going to go? Well, you were just wondering what was going to give. Could Volk do a 25-minute kind of thing if he needed to, or was he going to get clipped and then the whole shit was going to come undone? And that's basically what happened. No, he did not come undone. He got clipped in that second round and dropped, and he got a little bit scrambled there in his own. But short of that, he won. Guys, Volkanovski was, I need to go back and look at the judging. One round I could understand giving to Lopes. Maybe they gave him round 2. Maybe they gave him round, 3, maybe one of those ones. But I will tell you, to me, it looked like one guy was a vastly superior fighter. Now, if you did not watch the watch-along portion of this broadcast, you'll miss it. But I'd like to revisit it because, to me, it's perhaps one of the most important takeaways that I have in this fight, which was Diego Lopes getting constantly turned. I'm going to break down the X's and O's here a little bit in a minute, but what I bring us all up to say, you had one guy just manipulating the other one, not physically so much by putting his hands on him and moving him, although you got a little bit of that in the first round, but a higher level operator using real estate, using fakes and feints and footwork and distance management and timing and all these other forms of control and manipulation to get the other person to do what they wanted them to do. That's really what happened here. You had a guy who has deep control of not just the basics, but now defining the terms of the engagement over the course of that fight. That's what you got. That's what you got in Volkanovski. He proved what we knew ahead of time was probably going to be the case. We didn't know if the bottom was going to drop out, but on the top side, so infinitely superior from a technical level. His jab was on point tonight. His leg kicking was not devastating, but that leg kicking jabbing combination he uses to harass guys' balance or to make them reset or to slow them down for subsequent offense after they try and charge him, that first and third timing. And by the way, him changing the timing and then changing the the setups, right? Sort of manipulating him in that way, pulling him into himself, all that stuff, just operating at a crazy high level. And I want to say something about Diego Lopes in the following sense. It's really about Volk. I'm saying all of this like there was this big discrepancy in skills, but I do think that Diego Lopes deserved to be there. But I want to talk about what Volk achieved in winning tonight. I'm going to get to the X's and O's in just a second. they were making some kind of light of it on the broadcast, or, whatever. They were talking about it on the broadcast. And I've said it before, I did not discover the 35 and over stat. Somebody else discovered it, but I had kind of popularized it. And Volk being the first 55er and down to ever win a weight class title, undisputed, above the age of 35, folks should not look the other way on this. You're not just going up against your opponent, you're going up against something that seemed like an historical iron curtain. To break that is no fucking small feat, because it means you have to have demonstrated excellence over vast points of your athletic life. As new contenders emerge, you still have to stay ahead of them, right? As new challenges and new styles and new metas emerge, you have to stay ahead of them. That's the point. Volkanovski is so good that, yes, he had setback and he came back, and we'll talk about the other record he set tonight. But in terms of the 35-year-old one at those lower weight divisions where your reflexes can give out on you and your durability can undermine your efforts, but also new contenders emerging, new challenges emerging, new styles of fighting emerging, just new threats, new body types, all kinds of stuff. And you have to stay ahead of the game. He proved tonight he is still, from a technical perspective, way ahead of many of his peers. Certainly far in excess of Diego Lopes. That is no small feat. I absolutely take my hat off to him and salute him for that. You have to be so technically good that you can suffer setback, new guys emerge. I mean, when he beat Max for the third time and ended up becoming something like the pound-for-pound best fighter in the sport, this was like 2022. Diego Lopes was nothing in this division. He might. I mean, I'm not. When did Diego Lopes make his UFC debut? What year was that? I can't even recall anymore. Right? He made his UFC debut in 2023. He was nothing. He was nothing at that time. He was a non-factor. This is what I mean. But yet he came up through the ranks, and yet he was able to emerge as a new contender, and he beat all these other guys. Like, you have to just be so good you can hover above the rest of the game in a way where, even as contenders get replaced and new styles emerge and all this stuff, right? New punching power threats and blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about ultimate thresholds, but, competitor to competitor, like these, it's just constantly getting varied, and you're staying above the fray. That only happens when you can deliver technical masterpieces. That is what you got with Alexander Volkanovski. That's really what you've gotten with him for the vast majority of his career. First Islam fight wasn't the best representation of that, but you got to see some of it. The last two losses obviously are not great examples of that, but in general, you get to see here what you're working with here. This is a guy who is, he's not beating you with dynamite punching power. He's got decent crap. He can pop a little bit, but he's not like super awesome with it. He's not beating you with like overwhelming, in general, firepower. Right? That's, the leg kicking, right? Like, Justin Gaethje's got firepower with the hands and the feet. Volkanovski doesn't. He's not beating you with overwhelming submission prowess. He's not beating you with overwhelming wrestling. He's beating you with overwhelming mastery of distance, overwhelming mastery of timing, of fakes, of feints, of setups, of strategy, of pattern setting, pattern disruption. His rhythm disruption is absurd. So I just want to contextualize what it means. It's not something you can just tick off on the box and be like, oh, he did it. What's the significance? The significance is that people can't maintain these leads on their competitors once their physical abilities tend to drop off a little bit in these dynamite lower weight classes. It just becomes very, very hard. It's hard to keep an advantage. But if your technical advantage is so absurd, even if there is these kind of drop-offs, with durability, with speed, with reflexes, if your technical ability is so high, you can make up for it. That is exactly what you got with him tonight. That's the first part I want to say. The second thing I want to say about him is the other thing that he did, and I made a video about this, and I saw people being like, at a bare minimum, didn't quite understand the contextual relevance. So let me establish it. Namely, prior to tonight, 6 fighters in UFC history had come from back-to-back losses and then tried to win a title. And only one of them had, and it was Randy Couture. But he had to change weight classes to do it, and it was only an interim title. So the other thing that Volkanovski did tonight, and the reason why I even looked into this was, I said to myself, wait a second, Volk's coming off back-to-back stoppages. Has anyone ever won a title coming off of back-to-back stoppages? And the only answer was Randy Couture, UFC 43, again, for an interim title after he changed weight classes, right? That's not what happened here. Now, granted, Ilya left, so it kind of complicates it to a degree, but the point I'm trying to make is to come back from not just 2 losses, 2 devastating, 2 terrible knockout losses, and then reclaim it by not being overly psychologically affected. And by the way, I want to point out as well, like willing to trade, did it on mostly on his terms, but willing to trade, like to be able to overcome that. That is such a hard thing to do. And usually what it signifies is when you've gotten stopped like that, oh, your time is up. But again, if you have such command of all of those other elements of the game, even if you don't have firepower, even if you don't have some of those other things that I mentioned, like, Charles Oliveira submission prowess, you can still achieve pretty extraordinary things. So he becomes that guy tonight to be able to psychologically rally in a way that seems so very difficult to do. To achieve at the highest level of what that weight division can offer today seems so difficult to do after coming back from that. To the point where most guys never get it. The 3 other ones that had tried were John Lober doesn't count. It's early UFC. It doesn't count, but him and Tank Abbott. I don't know what you want to say about that. And then it's just Yoel Romero, who kind of got gifted one based on the state of the division. But then it was Frankie Edgar, it was Jose Aldo, and it was Randy Couture before these guys tonight. Those are Hall of Famers, bro. Those are Hall of Famers. And Couture got the closest, but no one else had really done it. Aldo got wiped out against Jan. Edgar got wiped out against Aldo, UFC 156. Not Volk. Didn't get wiped out at all. Got dropped. We'll talk about it in just a second. But that is an enormous achievement. You're talking about someone who's, dude, he did make a mistake against Ilya. So even someone as technically gifted as him can be beaten in individual moments, right? But what I hope everyone can take away from tonight, if you have any lesson that you're drawing from this, is his ability to stay relevant is a function of being a technical wizard, by being an absolute virtuoso. That's how he's beating these guys. He is a virtuoso. That motherfucker in the orchestra is first chair. Make no mistake about that. And he did something that in the history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, in 2 different ways, no one's ever done before. Hall of Famer, first ballot, easy to call, no problem. Now, let's talk about that fight. Diego Lopes drove me fucking crazy in this fight. Again, I don't give a shit who wins. The most deserving guy wins. Who was the most deserving guy tonight? It was clearly Volkanovski. So I'm glad the right guy won. The right guy won tonight. But I can't stand watching guys who are elite fighters in these, or in elite fights anyway, who have these once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and by the time they get to the big dance, they're still making errors that it's like, guys, I don't imagine that I am the world's best analyst, not even by a million miles. I don't ever think of myself that way. I'm not suggesting it. But what I am trying to say is, if somebody like me can see this on tape, how the fuck is it not getting through to some of these guys? You cannot follow Volkanovski for 25 minutes and expect to win. It cannot happen. They kept talking about how Volkanovski, goes side to side with lateral movement, which is technically true, but somewhat overstated. He did this against Max, especially in the 3rd fight, although I don't know. I have to go back and see exactly which way he rotated. But in this particular case, he rotated to the outside of the power of the right hand of Lopes, and Lopes just followed him. And if you did not watch the broadcast I did, the watch along, boys and girls, you cannot do that against somebody like him. Understand this. This is what Max did to Jose Aldo. Max fought Jose Aldo twice, and he stopped him both times. Now, one time he went clockwise, and one time he went counterclockwise, and they involved different weapons. But if you're going to go clockwise if you're going to go to the outside, you're going to make them follow, right? You're going to go to the outside of their jab hand, so the power hand has to follow. The more you turn them, the more they have to follow to catch up with you, right? Because they don't want you to get an angle on them. So they're going to follow. As he did this, he was getting popped with the jab consistently. And as he tried to follow him, he's getting leg kicked consistently, which means you have to reset and reset and reset and reset. And of course, the damage can be accumulating to the point where the right eye of Lopes was quite swollen. Now, I don't think that was just from the jab. There was obviously some hooks that you saw Volkanovski was able to land, like really, really great combinations. He rolled underneath and then landed his own. That was fucking phenomenal. But the point I'm trying to make is you're getting turned. And if you're getting turned, it makes it hard to throw kicks. It means the second dude, we're talking little windows, but that's what the window is. If you and I are 50-50, we're level, and I take an angle on you, there's a window where you have to follow. And in that window, your defense sucks. And every time he was getting popped for that for the course of 25 minutes, and he never, ever made a correction. There are times where you want a cage cut. There can be times where you want to follow. I had a long conversation one time with Anthony Pettis about this after he knocked out Wonder Boy. He did not want a cage cut. He wanted to follow for a very specific purpose. But in the case of Diego Lopes, that clearly didn't serve his interest whatsoever. He needed to cage cut, and he never did. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, Volk didn't let him. Yes, that's true to an extent, but go back and look at how many times he let Volk just take center. Just take center. Dude! How are you going to beat a fighter this good giving him center of the octagon? And the answer is you're not. You're not. You're absolutely not. A tragic mistake on his part. And I think one that over the course of his career, it's just hard for me to believe that guys can get to this level. They can get an opportunity against a technical marvel and someone like Volkanovski and then let themselves get turned for 25 minutes. You just have to do something else. And he didn't. And that to me is like a crazy, crazy thing that he never corrected for. And the answer, of course, is he didn't want to probably get, overzealous and get taken down. He was, I think, I will look up the stats here in just a second, 9 for 10 on takedowns, or stuffing takedowns, I should say. So he did, except for that first round, he did pretty good. And he probably didn't want to, rush in and take a big punch. But it's like, dude, on the Fight Day broadcast, which was available here on my Substack, we went over this. He waits. Dude, good fighters take advantage of mistakes or openings. Great fighters make you make them. So Volk was a great fighter and made him create openings. I'm going to turn you. You're going to follow. Bam. Turn you. You're going to follow. Bam. Turn you. Fake up high. Bam. Leg kick or whatever else he wanted to throw behind it. That's what he does. He makes you follow. He makes you get led. He makes you make mistakes. He makes you leave openings, and then he just takes advantage of them. If you can create your own openings, the world is your oyster. Like, that's Floyd Mayweather shit. I'm not saying he's the Floyd of MMA. I'm not trying to make that comparison, but like Floyd was very good at that. People think that Floyd just waited around and popped people and ran. No, Floyd created openings, would pop them, and then he would run. But that, you understand, like, we're just a high level of fight IQ. So much waiting around from Diego Lopes, an unforgivable amount of waiting around from Diego Lopes. Just waiting on Volk to make a mistake is such a hard way to go about doing that. But I gotta say, dude, in that first round, Volk looked fucking awesome. Did he not? Did he not look incredible? His strength looked just as good as it always had. He used that Kosoto hook to take Lopes down. He had savage ground and pound. Even when Lopes was able to stand, he was able to control from the waist and then pop him up the side. I mean, dude, talk about having offense everywhere. Volkanovski fucking had it. Man, he looked freaking phenomenal in that first round. I looked at that. After that round was over, I was like, dude, I don't even know what the hell we're even doing with that. How do you fight this guy? That's incredible how good he looked. Second round obviously was the one where he got dropped off. Like, it wasn't a full double jab, but it was like kind of like a pantomime double jab, and then the right hand landed behind it. So, he was able to rally, but you can see he got rocked. So, like, the questions about his durability to me are as legitimate as ever. It's not like he silenced them or something. He just proved that, like, despite those things being true, he was able to overcome it. Not like, oh, we overestimated it. We may have overestimated the risk, but we didn't overestimate that Diego posed. But we didn't overestimate the risk that, like, the durability could have been, and perhaps in a different scenario. But in general, when he needed to settle things down and go back to the jab, leg kick, and reset and take center, he did. And when he wanted to, again, we talked about turning him, he did. Let's take a look at some of these. You know what? Let me see if they've got the scorecards up because I'm curious to see who gave the 2 rounds. Do we have it? Yes, we have it. Okay, let's take a look here. Let's take a look here. Okay, here's the scorecard. Share screen. Okay, I'll do this one. And then in the background, I'm going to take this off. Yeah, have a gander at that. Have a gander at that. So I don't know if you can see. Let's blow that up a little bit. There we go. Okay. All right. So Derek clearly had the 48-47. He gave rounds 2 and 4 to Diego Lopes. That's the round where he dropped him, round 2. Round 4 is an interesting one. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because look, Sal D'Amato gave rounds 2 to Diego Lopes, but Chris Lee only gave round 4. So rounds 2 and 4, I guess, are your, if Lopes has any rounds, it's those 2. And then I guess 1, 3, 5 on all 3 for Volk. So there you have it. That's interesting. 2 and 4. 2 and 4 are the rounds there. Now let's take a look at some of the stats if we can here. Let me pull this up. And then we'll get to this co-main event here in just a second. Man, look at some of these numbers. These are great. How about this? Volk, 158, more than doubled what Diego landed. Now, Volk only got 1 of 11 takedowns, so that's not great. But look at these numbers. 27-8 kicked his ass in round 1. 24-6. These are numeric totals, not qualitative totals. 25-9, 39-16, and 40. Dude, this was an ass kicking. Let's look at the targeting. I bet it's much more diverse for. No, actually, you know why? Because he was actually going to the body. That makes sense. From Diego Lopes. Lopes going to the head about 80%, not quite, and then 10 and 10 again, not quite. In terms of the diversity, much more head hunting in this particular case for Volk. These are just to set up and touch. And of course, the fight took largely place at range. Look at this, the red just overpowering everything here. Quite remarkable. So there you have it on that main event. If you got a question about it, you can fire to the super chat. We'll get to it here in just a minute. But really, really an insane performance for Volkanovski. One you knew he was capable of, but to be this good this late in his run, pretty special.